Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, joining this video where I'm going to go through all the components of inline skates. I'm going to go through the boots, the frames, the wheels, the bearings, the spacer, the balls, the axles, and then ultimately I'm going to give you my best picks and my suggestions depending on what level of skater you are and at what stage in your skating career you're at. My name is Victor Halthorpe. I've been skating since I was 5 years old. I went to 2 Olympic Games as an ice skater and I'm currently training for my 3rd. I'm also part of the Rollerblade World Team. So I do have some experience and I'm very excited to be sharing all of that with you guys today. At first, we're going to look at the boots, which is by far the most important part. The reason I decided to make this video is because I do really think it's very complicated, it's very difficult. I received so many comments on what should I choose, what's the best skate. There is no best skate. It's a very individual thing, so I just want to make that clear before we get started. So I can't tell you which skate to buy, I can't tell you what's the correct wheel size, but I will try and indicate, depending on what level of skater you are, depending on how good you are technically, depending on your body size, your age, then I'm going to try and pick which skate or at least suggest what direction you should go towards. Starting out, if you're brand new to inline skating, you would want to go for what we call a fitness skate. This one here is the Macroblade. It's been one of Rollerblade's absolute most beloved skates for many years. It's an all-time legend, and this is also an upgraded version of the skates you would find if you go down to your local sports store. These skates are great because they're comfortable. It's a great entry-level skate. As you can easily see here, there's a lot of support and there's a high cuff on the skate. And it also comes with relatively small wheels, especially if we compare them to some of these wheels, right? Small wheels is not as fast as big wheels, however, it is more comfortable. But if we look at the boot first, much more forgiving. So if you don't have the ankle strength yet, this will help you stabilize when you're skating. As you can see, there's also multiple ways to tighten the skates. On the top of this BOA, which is relatively new in skating, however, I'm personally a very big fan. The BOA tightening system here, you also have a micro buckle to adjust up around the cuff here. So really it just gives you all the opportunities and the best conditions to get into inline skating. People will also find that these are much softer, especially when we're comparing to the carbon shells later on. The good sides about a softer skate is simply it's nicer and it allows you to move around a little. If you're brand new to inline skating, you might want to sacrifice 1% of performance in order to be comfortable and not deal with blisters, which is why most people start on a fitness boot. It is very difficult to see from a distance, but when you come up close, you can see that there is a plastic shell around it. And one of the most important things to note about fitness skates is that very often, most often, you are not able to switch the frame out. So you really want to make sure that whatever skate you pick, you have the wheel size that you want to go with as you purchase it. Now, let's say you gotten into skating, you figured the basics out, you've seen some of my other videos on how to skate well technically, you might want to move on to the next step, which is what we call a semi-speed skate. I'm not a big fan of that term, and in generally I haven't been a big fan of this sort of skates. I have suggested people to rather move on from fitness to speed. Yes, might be challenging in the beginning, but quickly you will pick it up and, why not go all the way? If your ultimate goal is to be a speed skater, you would probably want to move into a shorter cut boot right away. However, I've been part of developing and testing the new BOA REVV skate here. This is a high-end semi-speed model. Of course, these are made by different brands. I will just use my own favorite here. I've tested this one, so I feel like I can give it a thumb up and I feel very good about recommending it. This is the BOA REVV, and as you can see, it does look a little like a fitness skate here. Same high cuff, but you will notice that this is a carbon shell. The bottom half is carbon, but you still have that cuff on top, which is why we call it a semi-speed, whereas fitness skates are soft. In the shell, you will find that speed skates are made of, if they're good, full carbon, so they will be a lot stiffer. Good thing about stiffness, it's more control, it's a snugger fit, Whereas the speed skates here, given the higher, or the fitness skates, given the higher cuff, they will support more higher up the leg. So speed skates allow you to move around, but if you don't have the strength, stability, or experience to control that movement, well, it's definitely not going to be beneficial to you yet. That's why we have the semi-speed skate. So it's a carbon shell here at the bottom, but then we have a cuff up here that, if you like, can be adjusted backwards and forwards in order to make it a little more customizable. So the idea behind the speed skate is that you still get that stiff, you get the good fit in the bottom of it, the nice power transfer through the carbon fiber, but you will still have some sort of support up here, which is why that makes it an ideal segue going from a fitness to a speed skate. Please do note also that a lot of people simply just go with the fitness or with the semi-speed. A lot of people don't have an ultimate goal of getting into speed skates. If you start skating at a late age, it might also just be nicer to stay with a semi-speed. I've done some testing here. I released a few tests on the channel here where I compared these three skates so you can see how much of a difference it actually makes. However, I'm a very experienced skater, so I do manage to control my speed skates quite well. If you're new to skating, this might come even closer to a speed skate, especially if you do ultra distances or long distances. The comfort over the course of hours of skating will probably, to a lot of you, make up for that little benefit you have of the movements in a speed skate. This is also coming with a BOA tightening system here, which is just super nice because it evens out that tension, which in my case left me with not sleeping toes and just made it a little more comfortable. It's super cool that you can adjust it on the go, but this is a semi-speed skate. So if you already know a bit of skating, if you got the basics, and if you want to go fast, well, here you have a skate that kind of allows you to move freely, but also gives you a little extra support. And another big plus of a semi-speed skate is that you can change the frames and the wheel size. So you can grow in this skate and you can make the setup that you prefer. Well, this, gotta be honest, it's my own favorite. I am a speed skater. This is the sort of boot you'd be looking at if you simply want to go as fast as you can and you have the skills to support that speed. This is what professional inline skaters use. This is what we use in races, European champs, world champs. This would be the kind of boot that you'd be looking at. They're very low all the way down to the ankles. The reason for this is that you want to be able to move around as much as possible to apply pressure in the right ways at the right time, especially when track skating. There will be crossovers, so you got to be really smooth in that ankle movement simply just to make nice crosses and have a good power transfer. So having that mobility in the ankles is going to make you a better skater, but only if you can control it. I've seen photos of myself as a younger skater where I should definitely have stayed longer with fitness skates or have gotten some semi-speed skates where you can see that my ankle tilts to the point where it cannot be healthy. So only wear speed skates if you're at the point where you're ready for it. Speed skates can either be stock boots, they can be semi-custom, or they can be fully custom. The differences between these are simply how well they fit your feet. If you have very standardized feet, you can be lucky to simply just find a standard skate that fits you. However, if you don't, there's a lot of boots that are able to be heated either in the oven or boiled in the water so they can adapt to your feet, or like the one I have here, a full custom skate. Downside to this is the cost, and also there's a lot of work in getting them. You would need somebody to make molds off your feet, and then depending on who you choose as your brand, well, you can end up waiting quite some time. I've had experiences where I waited for more than a year simply just to get my skates. A speed skate would be the ultimate thing if you have the skills to go fast. Now, let's try and look closer at the frames that you will find as the bridge between your wheels and your skate. There's a few different models, so let's dive into that. When choosing a frame for inline skates, there's also a ton of different options, so it can be hard to choose. However, we can easily divide them in 3 different categories of materials, and we can also narrow it down to what wheel size you would want to use. First, we have plastic frames. These are mainly used for fitness skates that we can't change once we purchase the skate. If you get fitness skates of good quality, you will find that they're still made of aluminum, which brings us to the next type of frame. aluminum frames. Aluminum is, by most skaters, most professional skaters as well, the main choice. Me, myself, I've been skating on aluminum for the last 3 years. So this is what I would suggest people to get. It's incredibly light, and if you get good extruded aluminum, you will find that it's very stiff. Also, the durability and life length of these frames is, well, as long as you want to keep them, basically. There is a few different brands making carbon frames. We probably know from EO Skates and from Bond that they have made a few models using carbon fiber. However, in the last few years, this has gone down in popularity simply because the aluminum frames have increased in quality to the point where they are very competitive on the weight. However, they are simply of better quality, they're stiffer, so they allow you to maneuver and they will last longer. Personally, I've had some not so great experiences with carbon fiber frames that got soft in the heat, and then in the end, during a marathon at the World Championships, I could actually feel my wheels burning through the carbon fiber of my boot simply because I kept falling down on it whenever I pushed due to the heat because it gets softer. So my suggestion here would be aluminum. This is also where you would have the widest range and then the biggest choice of wheel sizes, of height, of length. So it's a very easy pick. When looking closer at the frames, the next thing you would want to take into account is, of course, how many wheels and how big your wheels should be. This is going to be my next chapter where I'm going to go into details with the wheels, but in order to choose the right frame, of course, you would want to make sure that it allows you to wear the wheel sizes and the amount of wheels that you would want. There is also some frames that come with the choice of putting either 4 or 3 wheels on the same frame. I do suggest people, especially if on a budget, to buy a frame that allows them to grow in wheel sizes. So let's say this frame here, the Rollerblade Rival, is a 110mm frame. This, however, does not mean that you can't mount 100mm wheels, 90mm wheels, 84 or 80 even. The only downside to doing this is that you would find yourself further off the ground. And one thing that you would always want in skating is to be as close to the ground as possible, which means a lower frame would be ideal. When it comes to the length of the frame, this is a very individual choice. The longer a frame you pick, the most general for 4x 110 or 3x 125mm will be 13.2 inches or 12.8 inches. So if you want them longer than that, means that you can't change direction as easily because there will be simply longer between the first and the last contact point. However, to some people, me included, this gives a nice sensation of being able to really put out and put down the pressure without your skates kind of flying away, especially the faster you go. The general rule is the faster you go, the longer the frame you would want. However, for track skating and narrow turns, go for something as short as you can find it. Wheel sizes. You can always upgrade if you have a frame like this. The downside is, well, that you're going to be further off the ground. But especially at a young age where you basically increase the wheel size every year you skate, well, it could be a good idea to buy something that allows you to grow a little in height and wheel size. The spacing of the frames is one thing that a lot of people are worried about, but it's kind of simple actually. There's 2 different spacings. 165 for smaller frames and for kids, which is also what we use in ice skating. And then for almost any frame, you would find 195mm spacing. Thankfully, that matches up with the spacing you would find on inline skates so that you can mount them together. In most cases, especially if the skates and the frames are well made, you will find that you can mount and adjust the frames sideways, whereas the boot will allow you to move it backwards and forwards. So in that way, you can move in all directions and find out, or you can put the frame exactly where you'd want it to be. This is something I suggest you spend quite some time doing because I know from experience that very minor differences on where you position your frame can have a massive effect on your skating and your comfort on your skates. So whenever you mount your skates, make sure to get that on point. If we look closer at the differences between 125mm wheels and smaller or 3/4 wheel frames, well, the big difference is that 3 wheels will generally, well, you are able to have bigger wheels, so it will allow you to roll a little faster, but 4 wheels will give you more contact points, maneuverability will be increased. This is very much a personal choice. However, you should note that 125mm wheels, so 3 wheel frames, is not permitted for track racing, at least at a competitive level. So 3 wheels, downside, gets you further off the ground, fewer contact points, more roll, slightly lighter. 4 wheels on the other hand, closer down to the ground, more maneuverability, and it's just easier to change direction and they're easier to steer. So if you're an inexperienced skater or new to skating, my recommendation will be to choose 4 wheels. Start at a lower size. If you're brand new to skating as an adult, I would say 4 times 100 millimeters, but if you want to save some money, you can go ahead and purchase a 4 times 110 millimeter frame. That way you can grow in it without having to change it later on. The next point will be the wheels. Again, there's going to be lots of different choices here, but let's see if we can figure it out together. When it comes to inline skating wheels, the 3 things you would want to keep in mind when choosing a wheel setup will be the size of the wheel, of course. Then it will be the firmness, as every wheel generally comes in different firmnesses. And then finally, most important point, the quality of the wheel. I'm going to give you a few examples here on how you can determine if it's a good wheel or not a good wheel. So first thing first, the size of the wheel. For many reasons, it's very important to pick the right size of wheels. First, you want to make sure, of course, that it is something that goes together with the size of your frames. If the frame does not permit the wheels to be mounted, well, you can't even skate. So make sure that you can mount them on your frame before you purchase your wheels. The wheel sizes, very simple. Smaller wheels, easier to steer, easier to control, won't go as fast. Larger wheels simply will have more roll. So that's that. As I just mentioned, I suggest 100 millimeters for adult beginners. If you're a kid, then you should start out with something even smaller. Personally, I started with 80 millimeter wheels as an inline skater and then moved on to 84, 90, 100, 110. And then today I'm skating on 125 millimeter wheels, which is the maximum size we're allowed to use. Looking at the wheel firmness, we find that most of the high quality wheels come in different firmnesses. It can be graded in different ways. There's the old-fashioned system, it's simply just A and then a number, so A80, 882, 885. The higher a number, the firmer, the stiffer the wheels will be. Generally, stiffer wheels, less grip. Softer wheels, not as good a roll, but they do have a lot more grip. So if you're skating somewhere either very rough, bumpy, or somewhere very slippery, you would want some soft wheels. For example, if you're skating in the rain or on old gravel roads. Whereas if you're skating on a brand new tarmac on a smooth track made for skating, well, you want to go for something with a little more roll in it. The 3 firmnesses here in the MPC or Rollerblade hydrogen system here is simply firm, X firm, so extra firm, and then XX extra firm. So double X firm. Those are the 3 different firmnesses you can choose. Some people probably wouldn't even be able to tell the difference, but you will notice on your times and just generally how you skate going from one to another, especially if you make the jump from firm to XX firm. I'm pretty sure most skaters out there can easily tell the difference. The hub itself has the same flex. If you get good wheels, they will have more flex and a rebound effect, but we'll get into that in just a second. So choosing the firmness here, I generally suggest skaters looking for comfort. If you don't want to get sore shins, if you don't want to get a sore lower back, if you want to sacrifice half a kilometer per hour of speed for some comfort that ultimately in the end, depending on where you're at in your skating career, might even make you faster over the course of a marathon, then I would go for soft wheels. Personally, especially when training for ice skating and not so specifically inline skating competitions, I tend to use firm wheels at almost every training or every workout session, simply because they're more comfortable, I avoid injuries, and I can skate longer and better. However, if you are going at a race, let's say Berlin Marathon, somewhere in a good pack and a big group where you know the pace is going to be elevated right from the start, the good roll will certainly make a difference for you. So it's a bit individual, but I suggest you try out the wheels before you race with them in a race. However, my strategy, especially being younger, being on a strict budget, was to always have 2 of each wheel and then, or 2 of each sets of wheels, obviously, and then I would have one that would be my race wheels and the other would be my training wheels, because they do wear out even the best wheels when you skate on them. So save good wheels for racing and then use your more worn out wheels for training sessions. So let's dive into determining the quality of a wheel. One thing that made a massive difference, it came out about 10 years ago, is technology called the dual rubber. So as you can see here, there's two different materials inside the wheel. The center of the hub here, or the center of the rubber here, is of a different softer material, which allows it, so when you put power, when you put pressure, when you put weight on it, it allows it to squeeze together and then bounce you back. This gives a very nice sensation when you're skating, and it will make a big difference when it comes to your speed. I've done some testing, you can see other videos on my channel, but trust me, this will make a massive difference. It also means that the wheels come at a much higher price, so especially if you're on a budget, I would probably just get one set of these for racing and try them out at a single training session just so you know the feel of them. But this is something that makes a wheel very comfortable, and the idea behind the two rubber system is that you won't really lose much speed when rolling, because it's only when you actually push off that this will squeeze together, so it won't feel as soft when you're using it. The other thing that I believe makes a big difference is the hub itself. So you can see this kind of spokes here also allows it to twist, but still maintain that good roll and stiffness in the wheel. The twist here will again give you a bounce back, almost a spring-like effect when you're skating, whether you're skating on a straight, or especially in a turn, and also give you a little more grip as it adapts to the surface. So look for a good spoke hub and try and see if you can find the double core, the double rubber. You would want to find things that are made out of rubber. I've seen some really, mostly low budget skates where you find the wheel here made out of plastic. This is a terrible thing to skate on, so I would highly recommend you to avoid that. So go for some higher quality wheels, and the wheels of my choice, I would generally recommend simply just X-Firm of the Rollerblade Hydrogen Pro, because they are, you know, a good in the middle, so you can be an all-round skater without having to purchase each a set of wheels for different surfaces. So this is a really good in-between wheel if you're looking to just find your single best pick. The next thing we are gonna look at is what to put inside the wheels. In a wheel, if you mount it correctly and if you want to actually be able to skate, you would need to put two bearings and a spacer in each wheel. So let's take a look at that. I will try and not get too far into the details of bearings and spacers, as this is something I already made a video on here in the channel. So if you're a subscriber already, you've probably seen that video. If not, I suggest you go have a look at it when we're done here. However, there's two different sizes of bearings. There's standard bearings, and then they're being outfaced, but before, a lot of people used micro bearings. Shouldn't worry too much about it. I suggest standard bearings. If you have micro bearings, you can easily find adapters for those, so they will fit in today's wheels. You would of course need 16 bearings, as you need 2 in each wheel, and then you would need the spacers in the middle of the bearings to simply just make sure they have the correct distance in between and to see that it rolls well, so they're all pointing straight. You would need 8 spacers, as there would go 1 in each wheel. You plug them in simply by applying pressure on one side, drop a spacer, make sure it's correctly mounted, and then you apply pressure on the other side to have 2 bearings, and then if all goes well, it spins just like that. When we look at spacers, you're gonna find spacers of different quality. They all generally seem to be okay. They're not too pricey. However, you can grade, or they are actually graded in a system called EPIC. It's called something like Annual Bearings Committee, where they are determined depending on how well they roll, how long they roll for, and how smooth the roll is the EPIC system. Really good bearings would be EPIC 9, just like these. And then it goes from there, EPIC 7, EPIC 5, EPIC 3. I suggest you to get EPIC 7 or EPIC 9 because you will see a little difference there. After that, they're really pretty much it. You can only find out the life length, the durability of a bearing by testing it. They're not super pricey. I use these Twin Cam Pro, been using them for years, and I just make sure to clean them whenever I go skate in the rain. Make sure you do it immediately after so they don't rust. If you're too lazy for that, you can get ceramic bearings. They are ridiculously pricey compared to standard bearings if you want some of good quality. However, they do not rust and they will maintain the roll quality for a little longer. It's not really something I've ever done, as I find that standard bearings have a set for racing and then I have a set for practice that I try and clean whenever I've been skating somewhere really dusty or in the rain. If you want to know how to clean your bearings, there's also another video on that on my channel, so you should check that out if you're unfortunate enough to have dirty bearings or to be skating in the rain. Then the other things that really matter is just the light of the bearings and yeah, the durability of them. But that is to a large extent up to you to make sure that that they'll stay alive for long enough. It's just a few things I want to enter or talk a little bit about before I finish this video. I will suggest you to get some nice waxed laces for your skates if they didn't come with your skates as you purchased them. Waxed laces will make a difference. It'll just keep that snug fit, especially through long races. I've been using those and it's almost a habit of mine that every time I race a big competition, say a World Cup or championships, I do change my laces before that race. At first I was like, it's a mental thing, but I do really think that makes a big difference. So get some good laces, waxed laces. 160 centimeter or millimeter, yeah, centimeter should be. Centimeter laces is the standard size, the standard length of laces. And I do think that fits skates quite well. You will have plenty of space to pull them tightly and then also to make a nice knot at the top. And when it comes to suits, well, if you're new to skating, it doesn't really matter as long as you wear something that allows you to be mobile, move around in. And if you get into more competitive skating, I do really recommend you to get a skin suit, even though some people feel a little uncomfortable. It's very tight to the body. However, it's just comfortable. Like, it's nicer to skate in a skate like that. It allows you to move around. It's good for perspiration. And I also did a test on this. I've been doing a lot of testing. You will find that they do go a lot faster. We talked about wheel sizes. I mentioned how 125 millimeter wheels go faster than 110. Well, guess what? The difference between a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and a professional skating suit makes even more of a difference than the wheel size. So that is definitely one thing that I recommend you to look into, getting a speed skating suit. And a good helmet. Make sure to get a helmet that fits you. Then I do think the comfort of a helmet is the most important thing. But if you want to really upgrade for the best of the best, I used the Rudy Project helmet because it's light, it's aerodynamic, and it just has a good fit. But this is something individual when it comes to the fit. Of course, a light helmet is a light helmet, but make sure it fits you well. So if you do have the option, try and go out into a store and test a helmet. You can always try and find cheaper prices online if that's what it comes down to, but try and see if you can check how it feels on your head at first. That was basically it for this video. I'm really happy that you wanted to watch it. I'm happy that you trust me in sharing this advice to you guys. Again, this is just my personal recommendations, but I have had a lot of skating experience, so I do really think most of this is valuable and hopefully you can use it when you either get started with inline skating or you want to just upgrade your equipment. If you're looking to have more of technical advice on how to actually skate or how to train to become a better skater, I made some training plans that you'll find below in the description here. I think they're pretty good and I've heard from people that they're not the worst. So give those a try. There's some free trials so you can see what it is like before you actually purchase one of the plans and go with a little more commitment into it. And then I just hope you want to subscribe to this channel and stay tuned for more. Also leave a comment if you have any ideas for whatever topic you think I should go a little more in depth with for my next video, whether it's a training thing, whether it's what I do in my life as a professional skater, or just equipment like today. So that's about it. I am thankful for your time and I hope to see you in very little time. I'm Victor Helthorp. You have a great day and enjoy skating.